I'm just delighted that he's able to come today and to share his expertise, and that you all are here, and you can learn from him. If you're here today, it's because you love pets, and you already know the pet effect, but we're going to hear more about that from Johnny. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. I guess usually when I talk to groups, it is about more of a medical topic of diagnosis or treatment or something. But when Gail asked to do this, I had actually given this speech to or this discussion to a group of retired teachers many years ago, and it was about the human-animal bond and just kind of what that means for how pets fit into our lives. And so I think there's some interesting things there that kind of go with your mission when it comes to people aging and how pets fit into
You
that.
need to speak up for the microphone.
Okay, sorry. And just understanding how that works with pets interfacing with your lives. And so one of the interesting nuances of my career, my journey, I've been about a little over 20 years now, is the more and more I treat pets, the more I learn about how pets treat us and help us. And I think that's kind of one of the ironies of my life, is understanding more about this intersection. And there's a lot of really cool stuff that we're going to kind of dive in today. But I'm going to start. I hope this will play for you.
Right now, millions of humans are suffering from solo binge watching, empty Instagram feeds, and broken exercise goals. But it doesn't have to be that way.
I like the cuffs.
What's the problem?
I'll play that in. Is it for you? Well.
It's not too late. Adopt a human today.
Sorry, y'all didn't get. I'll have to mute myself.
No, you're fine.
Not technically.
You're fine. You're fine.
I don't think he clicked on the audio, presume.
Oh, it's echoing. Okay.
When he went in, he didn't click on the check box. When you went in, did you click on the check box for audio?
Turn up the volume. Which go?
When you first share your screen, there's check boxes for audio and video.
Uh-huh.
Did you check those?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So a recap, I'll share the videos with you guys if you want, but this is just a cute video about pets needing to adopt humans to take care of them. So I was going to start with a little bit of a story. I had a little 80-year-old woman named Dorothy that was a client of mine for many, many years, and she had Scotties. She loved Scotties. She wore Scotty socks. She wore Scotty sweatshirts. She had a little Scotty purse, and she would come in, and I took care of one of her dogs for many, many years. And as it got to the end of its life, she said, "You know, I don't think I'm gonna get another dog because of my age, and I just don't think I can take on that responsibility." And I felt sad about that. We had to put her dog down, and I kind of remember thinking, this may be the last time I ever get to see Dorothy. And about 6 months later, she called me and she said, "I got a puppy and I want you to meet him." And so she came in and we saw the dog and did all the vetting. And at the end of our appointment, I had to say, "Dorothy, what happened? Because the last time I talked to you, you had told me you weren't getting another pet." She said, "Well, I wasn't doing very well. I was depressed. I was in and out of the doctor." And she said the doctor finally sat down one day and he pulled out his prescription pad and he wrote me a new prescription. She said he handed it to me. When she looked at it, it said, "You need to go get a dog." And so she did. And her life changed the moment she got this dog back in her life, because it really was the thing that was giving her purpose. And I think what's interesting is the data says 97%
of human physicians believe that pets impact our healing, our health, our well-being. And so there's some of the stuff we're going to get into today is just some of the research that's coming out in that regard, and talk a little bit about the human animal bond and how it's what we're learning about pets and how they impact our lives. So start a little bit with the history. So pets have been with us. Sources say it goes back to 10 to 12,000 BC. And that's when pets started living with us. And this was a pivotal time in the history of communities, because before it was like nomadic. Pets started living with us. We started having agrarian economies. Or agrarian societies. We started having hunter-gatherer ways, and the pets started being part of that. There's data suggests that pets were even buried with their owners thousands of years ago, because they were starting to be an integral part of their societies and life. And you kind of fast forward to where we are now. We've seen this evolution has continued to evolve, and I feel like there's been a dramatic shift in the human-animal bond over the last, I'd say, 100 years, really probably 75 plus years. And I guess one of my questions for you, what do you all think have been some of the compelling things that have driven that over the last few years? So yeah, I think COVID was a huge impact on people not being able to integrate with other people, but pets were there. The shelters emptied out. People adopted pets, but couldn't interact with people, but they could with their pets. But going back a little bit further, a couple of interesting things have happened in the last 75 years. One, in 1885 is when the rabies vaccine was developed for people. But in the 1950s is when it got developed for pets. And before that time, rabies was a threat. I mean, it was a real threat for people from their own dogs. And it was something that dogs lived kind of distant lives. They lived in these groups with us, but we didn't associate with them the way we do now, because there was always a little bit of a threat of animals. And so getting rabies vaccines, which then led to other potential vaccinations for pets. A lot of the things we vaccinate for don't necessarily impact humans. Rabies was a real threat. There's still parts of the world where lots of people die of rabies every year, and usually it's because of interaction with dogs or pets. The other thing that I think has been the most pivotal, and I think the thing that sometimes gets overlooked, is good flea and tick preventions. In the 1990s, we started providing better products to take care of fleas and ticks. But when we started having good products, probably really in the 2000s, that's when pets moved from outside inside, because people didn't want fleas in their house before. But now when you knew you could take care of that, then all of a sudden the pet could live inside, it could sleep inside. And once they lived inside, they were part of our normal daily routines. And then we know now they're sleeping in your bed with you every night, and they're going everywhere with you in the car, and they have their own outfits and everything they have to dress up in every day. So it's I think there's been a couple of really interesting things in the veterinary medicine side that have kind of helped bridge that gap. And then to your COVID point, I think the other big thing is the evolution of lifestyles. People historically lived in a community. They often didn't leave or didn't go very far. They had a network of people and relationships with their church and their schools and everything else they worked with. Now people live much more mobile lives. They live in urban communities without a lot of space, so pets have to live indoors with them. And for lots of people, I mean, interestingly, we live in a more virtual world. We're in the virtual community right now. This virtual world has broken down some of the normal interpersonal relationships that we have. And now for lots of people that I see in my practice, lots of people, their pets are their best friend and the only real source of attachment that they have. And it's been an interesting trend that has also kind of fueled some of this stuff. So a little bit about statistics. 2/3 of US households have pets now. That's representative of 94 million cats, $89 million, 139 million fish, 20 million birds. I'm just going to give some of the data that's out there on pet ownership. Pet ownership is up 56% in the last decade. Dog ownership is up 30% in the last decade. Cat ownership up 43% in seniors over the
What you
last
mean
decade.
is cats are the owners, right?
That's right.
All right.
Well, what we say is, dogs have owners and cats have staff. So 95% of households consider pets part of the family. 80% of people say they get happiness or emotional support from their pet. 11% of people report pets are allowed at their workplace. And greater than 50% of dogs sleep in bed with their owners, and greater than 75% of cats. And I think that number is a lot higher than 50%.
How many dogs in bed?
I read a statistic one time that it was like 80-something percent of dogs are in bed. And that has dramatically shifted in 20 years. I think it was like 7% in the 80s. So more and more pets are being recipients in people's wills. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of Gunther the Fourth. Gunther the Fourth bought Madonna's last house. He was a countess in Liechtenstein's dog that inherited, I think, $80 million that's now managed and is worth over $500 million. And Gunther buys yachts and homes all over the world and lives this fancy life. Oprah has committed $30 million per dog. She has 4 or 5 dogs, and she said she's going to leave $30 million per dog in her will. Betty White had left millions of dollars to her dog. So people are, I think what we're seeing, and I've seen a little bit of this in my own practice, is that there are people whose relationships with their family members is somewhat strained and not always great. And people are now going, the pet is the only loving part of my family, and they're going to inherit my estate.
You gotta be careful who administers the estate or he won't live long.
Totally.
I think the New York Times last week had an article about the wills for pets, and they're quite expensive.
I believe that's true. Yeah. There's an interesting, A&M has a place, a center on campus. It's actually a really cool facility where if you pass away, you leave a trust to the pet, but the pet will live out the rest of its life, healthy life in this facility. They have horses, they have llamas, they have emus, they have dogs, cats. Vet students live there. It's basically a scholarship for like 4 or 5 vet students who get to live there. And part of their deal is they get free room and board, but they take care of all these animals. The vet school takes care of their vet care. And I don't know what the cost is. And I'm sure it's kind of based on expected life expectancy of the pet. But it's interesting because it's an option. There are a lot of people who get to this point, kind of like Dorothy, of like, if I die, what's going to happen to my pets that I love? And sometimes the neighbor or the son or the daughter may take them on, but sometimes they can't. And so it's nice to have an opportunity for a place where that kind of stuff can exist.
I've been amazed going through downtown Austin, kind of at the end of the day on something, picking up drives probably. How many people that live in these apartments have big dogs?
Mm-hmm.
They're walking them on the street, and I thought, they must live close by. Surely they don't drive to downtown Austin to walk.
And the homeless have lots of big dogs.
The homeless do, right?
Yeah, there's lots of, so interesting on that topic. I mean, 40% of domestic violence victims won't leave situation if they have to leave the pet. And that's an interesting thing that is a huge problem. And we're actually do some work with a shelter here that does accept pets, but that's not the norm. Many of them do not. 5 to 10% of homeless individuals and pet owners will not receive assistance if they had to leave their pet behind. And they're actually individuals. I actually went to a speech one time about prisoners who got out of prison and got dogs and said they would have committed crimes again if it weren't for the fact that their animal was a reason that they had responsibility. They did not want to go back to prison, leave their pets.
Yeah, there was a special on that about 2 weeks ago, and I was concerned about Gandalf in my lap, and apparently because the prisoners, training program for prisoners, they start off with this great big dog in their lap, and it to me, so I felt pretty macho about that.
They start them while they're still incarcerated.
They can,
And
yeah.
then if that all goes well, they can take them.
So she give them a suit of clothes, $20 and a dog.
Yeah, and it's hard to, it's interesting because I never would have thought, there's lots of reasons we say, oh yes, that makes a lot of sense. It's hard to believe I never would have thought that pets make communities safer by decreasing crime, but the data is saying that it can and does in some instances. We'll talk a little about millennials real quick, just because they're the newest population of pet owners, but 65% of millennials would be more stressed and separated from their pet for a week than their phone, which is really hard to believe.
That's very.
But that's the interesting data point there. 92% of millennials purchase gifts for their pets. 75% of Americans in their 30s own a dog. Over half Americans in their 30s own a cat. And pet ownership is actually going up, and childbirth rates are actually coming down, which is kind of interesting where this is going to head.
It's good for your business.
It
is.
It's good. It's it's interesting to see where all this stuff goes. So I am talking a little bit about kind of the health and well-being benefits. So some of the data that I got comes from an organization called HABRI, which is the Human Animal Bond Research Institute. It's funded really to just do data collection and research around how pets are influencing our lives and healthcare. And there's so much out there. I mean, I tried to capture some of the clips, but there's just so much information here and so much data. You can take a deep dive on this stuff. But when it comes to allergies and immunity, we know that kids who grow up with pets in the household have less challenges with allergies and better developed immune systems because they're exposed to things over time. Alzheimer's and dementia. Studies show that therapeutic animal therapy decreases agitated behaviors and increases social interaction in dementia patients. I think this is fascinating. One study found that adding an aquarium to an Alzheimer's facility increased food intake in the patients. Something as simple as a fishbowl can actually impact a whole group of population of people. Animal assistance has shown to improve communication skills and awareness of dementia patients. Dog-assisted therapy has been shown to increase mood and social behavior. And then pet therapy has shown to improve cognitive ability in patients of long-term care facilities.
Hey, what's the crossover between pets, service and service
Yes.
peacocks and things like that? I mean, this is
I think that
out of hand to me.
I think the service animal is a loose interpretation in that, do you think it's providing service for you? So there are police dogs, or seeing eye dogs. There are dogs who are trained to do specific tasks. And then there are a lot of dogs we see that are really just, they are support dogs, but they're really there as emotional support dogs, which means they don't have to do much other than to be a supportive companion. So, I think that's one of the challenges when we talk about flying on airlines and stuff now. There's been a little bit of pushback because it's easy to qualify your dog as a service dog if for any reason. When you really are trying to get down to, is this a dog who does a specific extra task for a certain reason or is trained for a capacity? Those are different things and have different stipulations. So,
And there are certifications for all those.
there are, for different ones. And
We've had a neat thing happen with Gandalf, is our daughter was bitten severely twice. And so once when she was 6, about 4 or 5 years ago. And so she is phobic around dogs, and Gandalf has desensitized her. She loves Gandalf. And then her son, of course, who's now almost 10, picked up her phobia. And so now Gandalf is desensitizing him.
interesting.
So it's really, and it's been a serious phobia.
Yeah.
So she just loves Gandalf. So
Wow,
it's
that's
really
really
nice.
interesting. We know, when it comes to kids with autism and on the spectrum, there's a ton. I actually see a ton of these patients now that come in with their children who are attached to them. And the data shows they increase talking, physical contact, looking at faces, smiling and laughing, and just overall confidence and comfort for many of these kids. Cancer is an interesting one, and there's a myriad of data that shows how pets are helping with both people in patient care and recovery. I have a current dog we've been treating for a cancer on its leg, whose owner was dropping the patient off. We were taking care of it. He was driving MD Anderson to get treated. And it was an interesting dynamic for us because we're focused on the pet, but there's this elephant in the room with the owner piece, which is something that happens a lot where we end up having to
we end up treating pets for the issues they have, but a lot of times the owners, we have to help treat them and counsel them through whatever issues they have, because there's a lot of times there's similarities that we either need to like understand or help to get through. Is when it comes to communication with people, it's good to understand kind of where they're coming from and what their perspective is on some of these things.
So John, I read that some dogs can smell cancer.
Yes, so that's one of the interesting things on the bottom here. And I'm fascinated by this, but dogs smell supposedly about 10,000 times better than we do. And there's a lot of research with certain types of cancers where they have been as good as the blood tests to pick out those patients that had like things like bladder cancers and some other things that have happened. So, to me, those are the areas that I think are really, really interesting as far as how pets interact with our lives from a medical perspective, because decreasing anxiety and comfort and healing and all that other stuff is I think we all kind of have come to terms with and expect that that's the truth. Diagnosing disease is really a fascinating one, because that's there's a lot of potential benefit for all kinds of things.
No, I knew a woman that had a dog that could sense when she was gonna have a seizure.
Right.
So
we
she was
have-
blind.
Yeah,
It's very helpful. And then one, they could tell us about blood sugar.
right.
They're,
They can pick up on those
they
things
can
too.
pick up.
Yeah,
on
like
blood sugar.
diabetics, for sure. Cardiovascular, there's a ton of research on how pets impact cardiovascular, but we know they can lower blood pressure. We know that there's a study that showed that people are 43% less likely to have heart attacks if they have a cat. There is, leading to all other cardiovascular disease like triglycerides are lower when people have pets. We know exercise, people are like 57% more likely to exercise when they have a pet in the household.
I've lost 5 pounds.
Yeah. And it's
This throws us both out in the morning.
one of our challenges as a vet is we also tend to see obese pets. So that it's not that isn't a thing, but it's also a matter of I think people are more willing to stick with a routine and get out and exercise when they have the responsibility attached to the pet to do so.
You may want to talk about this later, but there's been so much advertising on, feeding your dog real food.
Oh, yeah.
So what is your perspective on that? Because they imply that the dog is healthier, everybody's happier. But I'm still feeding my dog dog food. So,
Yeah,
You don't keep his food in the refrigerator with yours?
no, I don't.
I think that that's a whole nother hour-long discussion of pet nutrition.
But just give us like this 30-second deal.
So here's what I'll say. I think that I think like all of us, I think if you eat fresh, healthy foods, I'm sure that's beneficial. I think the limitations on pets are we preparing it in a way that we're getting all of the vitamins and minerals and amino acids and everything that they need? That's one of the values of commercially available diets. They've hit all that. They've already created a formula that meets that. And I have people who say, well, I feed them chicken and green beans. And I'm like, okay, well, that may not be a well-balanced diet enough to hit everything that they need. But we actually have nutritionists now that we can access for people who say, I want to cook for my dog, or I want to feed raw food or whatever else, that will get with them and look at the pet's lab work and everything else and decide, here's a formula that we need to do. So I don't think it's bad. It's more work, it's more cost. And I think that when it comes to pet ownership and the costs that we have with them, I still think there are a lot of really good commercially available diets that hit the needs. But I'm never going to tell a client, don't do that instead of cooking for your pet. If people want to cook for their pet, I think it's great. We just need to make sure we're getting the right quality, good quality ingredients and in the right way. That makes sense. That's just a little harder to do because people have not been used to doing that.
Right, they don't even do it for themselves.
Right. I mean,
So-
yeah, I mean, I it's not right for me to go to like Lane's and get chicken tenders or McDonald's. That's probably not the best thing, but I still do it occasionally. And it's probably not the best thing for me. But on a global scale, I do think that the commercial diets, I believe they've gotten a lot better. There's a lot more competition in that space now. And there's been which is good and bad, right? There's
one of the limitations of commercial diets is that there's a lot of marketing that goes behind that. And a lot of it is hard to understand. Is the marketing truly representative of what's in the package? And I think because there's so much competition, I do think it's raised the bar for what we feed our pets across the board. I mean, I think kind of a rising tide raises all boats there of if you're not trying to create a good diet that really does do the pets well, then you're probably going to get lost behind because there's a lot of people out there with that mission and pursuit. So I think we've got more options, but probably more good options as well. That makes sense. Child health and development. Y'all probably know there's plenty of impact of where we see pets ending up in classrooms because it helps kids read and helps them socially integrate. Classroom pets have improved student attitudes about school and facilitate learning and responsibility and respect and empathy. So we're seeing more and more places where pets are intersecting with our lives.
Did they let pets in Austin Independent School
Yes,
District?
I used to take my black lab to school to help waiters learn how to write.
Mhm.
And so we would have, and you had to write 6 coherent paragraphs for the tax. And so we would have the dog walker, the dog washer, the dog groomer, the dog setter downer, the dog feeder. We had 6 different things. And then the lab, and when we would do it, we would combine classes. So we would have 40 kids in the classroom. And the lab would go to sleep in the middle of those 40 kids.
Yeah.
It was great because this was a high risk school and it's harder for them to have props. So the lab was
Yeah.
wonderful. You know, they rode up a storm with that.
That's awesome.
Our kids had guinea pigs and gerbils. We had to take home for the weekend.
When I
Fish at Christmas.
when I speak to elementary kid classrooms, we typically will take a pet, and it's usually they do not care what I say or what I'm talking about. It's usually they're focused on the pet, and that's really all that they ever want. So it's a good prop for me, though. It keeps the limelight off of me. So
Did you talk about that last slide about depression and everything?
Yeah, and the Austrian nursing
For
homes.
longevity.
which one were? Oh, this one. Sorry. Yeah, it should be coming. All right. Yeah. So healthy aging. So sorry.
That's really key.
Yeah, exactly. So one study found that strong attachment to pet reduced depression in elderly individuals. Animal assisted therapy can dramatically reduce loneliness. And then this Austrian study showed in nursing homes found that patients that visit a dog regularly had less confusion, fatigue, tension, and depression. So we know that there is impact there. I actually have a colleague who was a successful businessman. He's now kind of in his pseudo retirement years, and he's decided to go. He's doing an executive program at Harvard right now, and his whole project, business project, is around how do we help elderly and aging people have pets. So he has there's a couple of different avenues they're working on in his business program. One is shared pet ownership among individuals so that they can kind of share the responsibility, but also share cost and everything else. And then one of his is an assisted program where you can help people with things like vet care or getting pets exercise, whatever they need, but still allowing the pets to live in the homes with certain people. And then his last one is really around nursing homes and facilities and making sure that they can provide a pet who could potentially live at a facility and take care of it and all that kind of stuff. So that's his whole Harvard business plan that they're working on currently. He just sent me I told him I was giving this talk, and he sent me a brochure about what they're working on. So
I've heard of somebody starting out with their, whatever, the elders take home the pets and they keep them, they live with them, but the place pays for everything.
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
yeah, it's
I mean,
interesting.
what we could do with the shelters.
Right. I mean, we know pets need homes, and we know that there are people that would love to have them and could benefit from having them, and if we can somehow connect those dots. Kind of going on to the mental health component. So we know with things like depression, pets can decrease loneliness. They create more sense of purpose for people
with depression and also feelings of confidence.
Some of the stories, studies we've seen also longevity is extended with pets.
Yeah, I think overall quality of life and longevity, and I think it gives people something to go for, to keep going for. So one of the interesting things we see a lot through our relationship with, there's a group here in town called the Dog Alliance that raises, trains, and then homes pets for PTSD for war veterans. And that's been a really cool program to be a part of because it's really like truly impacted these people. And it's really been a great and rewarding thing. But there's tons of data and research around trauma of all sides, whether it's abused children, whether it's, war veterans, whether it's, any other kind of major trauma in life where the pets have made a huge impact on just giving people a little bit more decreased depression, but giving people less anxiety and stress and helping them to kind of cope with issues there.
Well, that is really something that tugs at your heart whenever you see vets, and especially when you see them like on TV when they reunite with the dog that they, a year or two later, it's when they retire the dog, they reunite them with. It's really wonderful.
It's cool. And the Dog Alliance has been doing a good job, and we get to vet all those dogs and take care of them. It's just cool. They're cool dogs. They're cool people. It's a great intersection of how all this stuff's come together. I actually have another friend who he's got a whole nonprofit around helping those people get veterinary care. And their mechanism right now is a nonprofit where they're trying to raise funds to basically pay for pet insurance for those people. So pets get a dog, but they also don't have to take on the financial responsibility because it's helping being funded. So, and quality of life, I think a lot of that, again, none of this is like totally novel to any of us here. We know pets have impacted our lives. I think what's been super interesting to me is the amount of research and data that's coming out and to really kind of understand and peel back the layers of what that actually means. And it really is. It's about quality of life in the community and us all having purpose, and pet ownership associated with improved quality of life through social support, reduced depression, other psychosocial predictors of health. And pet owners have been found to report higher life satisfaction than non-owners. So I think what's interesting to me is kind of where you look at what the last 100 years has done to pet ownership and how they have come in our lives, and trying to understand where things go in the future. We know that the younger generation is owning more pets and having less kids. They're only going to get more bonded. And so it's what else is going to come out of that. One of the interesting things is there's a bill in Congress that has not been signed yet, but is a bill being discussed, is being able to use your tax advantage HSA account, use $1,000 a year for pet expenses. And I think to me, it's like when the IRS starts saying this is a big deal, then it probably means that there's a big deal there and that there's some really interesting things that are coming down the pipe with that. So I will
I'll vote for that.
happy to talk about anything else you guys want to talk about. I'll leave you with a couple of things here. One is Mahatma Gandhi said, greatness of a nation is and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. And tell me, I've got the video, but tell me what the best way to play this is for the sound to work. What do I need to
I
do?
think we need to turn our audio off and you need to turn
mine on.
yours.
Turn ours off.
Yeah, so it doesn't echo.
All right, my audio is on.
No, I know, but his sound hasn't been on. So when he turns his sound,
Discover relief from fatigue, depression, and stress. Discover Dog. Prescription strength Dog is the non-harmful treatment that is shown to lower blood pressure and risk of heart disease, prevent allergies in children, reduce stress levels, decrease anxiety and depression, strengthen your immune system, and increase social interaction. Side effects may include talking in ridiculous dog voices, picking up poop, making funny faces, being jealous of your dog kissing other people, pretending your dog has a job and has to pay rent, excessive social media posts, laying on the floor pretending to die to see if your dog comes to help you, having full-on discussions with your dog, feeling guilty if you don't tell your dog you love them before you leave the house, saying bless you when your dog sneezes, calling your dog by names other than its actual name, congratulating your dog's bowel movements. Discover better health. Ask your veterinarian about Dog.
got one more for cat lovers too.
Who are the cat lovers? Oh, we love cats too, we just don't have one right now.
I found a way to relieve my depression.
I found a way to lower my cholesterol.
I found a way to strengthen my immune system.
I found better health with Cat.
In clinical studies, prescription strength CAT has been shown to be effective in strengthening your immune system, preventing allergies in children, lowering cholesterol and triglyceride levels, reducing stress, and decreasing anxiety and depression. Side effects may include difficulty breathing because a cat is sleeping on your face, trouble working because a cat is on your computer, issues packing because a cat is in your suitcase. You may experience trouble peeing because your cat is staring at you. You may spend all day posting pictures of your cat on social media. Some cat owners experience nausea at the sight of dead rodents on their doorstep. Things may fall from tall surfaces and break because your cat knocked it off and doesn't give a kitty litter. You may feel a strange sensation that you don't own your cat and that your cat actually owns you. Discover better health. Ask your veterinarian about cat.
These videos, I don't think they're on TV. They were used as kind of a ad campaign, but they're pretty easily found. So, all right. What question? Yeah.
So doggy kisses, who's more at risk, the dog or the people?
I don't know that anybody's really at risk. I think it's a good thing. What other questions do I have?
You know, Sue and I have been married for 56 years. And at about year 5, we needed to go to a little counseling. And one of the issues was whether or not we were going to have children during the Vietnamese War. And it was pretty rough. As rough as today in many ways. And so we went to a very high level counselor because we were both graduates of school of social work. We knew a little bit about counseling, but not enough. And so we're sitting there, we're discussing this, and the doctor says, get a dog. And we said, what? So get a dog. If you can raise a dog, you can raise a child. So now we've raised 4 Labradors. We're raising this dog and about half a dozen cats and 2 children.
You know, one of the interesting things I see is it goes both ways. I have families who have the pets first, who are their children, and then they have a human, and all of a sudden, sometimes the dog slips a little bit in the pecking order there. But it goes the other way too. I have people who've had kids and without pets, and then all of a sudden they get a dog and they're like, the kids are a pain. The dog loves me no matter what. So like, they truly love the pets.
What pets do you have?
You know, currently I have none because I had a 16-year-old border collie that I lost a couple of years ago, and then got married and started having babies. And my wife keeps telling me, until we have babies out of diapers, I can't get another pet. We're almost there.
Not even a fish?
We've gotten there. I know right now. I get to play with pets all day, every day. So that fuels my joy.
Do you want to show the people on Zoom can see Gandalf?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You could turn the camera.
Well, we can-
Yeah, turn the camera.
See?
Oh, I was just thinking you could bring him up.
So does Gandalf get some
Gandalf.
applause?
And
Get
do we
some
have
applause? Hey,
Do we have any questions from the folks online?
where do I position myself?
Just-
Right there, right, turn around.
Oh, turn around.
Camera's here.
Oh,
There's Gandalf.
Candace. there's Candace. Hi, Gail. Hi, Maury. Here we go.
For those that don't know, Candace is like a magician when it comes to training dogs. So
We,
I might need her.
we've had 2 sessions with Candace and look how well he's behaving.
Intermittently.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a picture.
Maybe she
Yeah,
could,
I'm
maybe
gonna
she
take a
could help
picture.
you.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
If that's okay.
With Johnny.
Oh, Johnny, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Our vet. Thank you, thanks.
Johnny, I was just gonna say, years ago, I had what I thought was a great new product. And I really I wish I could have thought about how to do it, but it was called puppy breath.
Okay, right.
And you get a spray can and you'd spray the puppy breath. It would smell just like puppy breath. And you know, puppy breath is so distinctive. I mean, it's acidy, it's it's kind of a little smelly. It's not sweet, but it's puppy breath. And puppies are so, sweet. You don't like.
Kind of like Chardonnay.
Kind of like Chardonnay, right, right.
It's not too late.
It's not too late.
I'm thinking that there are some people that resent migrants coming to this country. But if we're having fewer children and more pets, we need people to serve us and be part of our population. So that was what came to mind when people were talking about having fewer children.
That's an interesting, there's data of a lot of countries. In fact, like China's birth rate has plummeted, and there's a lot of countries that are just having less people. That's unfortunately for me, that's not my problem. My problem is to deal with pet peeves, take care of it. Thank y'all for having me.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, you got
That's
it.
great.
Thank you, Gail, for saying this.
Yeah.
I know it. Well, it makes me look good. All I care about.
Well, I think the thing on the flea and tick protection,
Might kill.
the fact that you can give them a pill once